Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar we have on fueling change, the importance of citizens' involvement in the discussion on biofuels. My name is Silje Fosse Håkonsen. I'm a research scientist at SINTEF, and I'm managing a European Horizon project called Refolution on biofuels production. And together with Bio4Fuels and ETIP Bioenergy, we are organizing this webinar. The reason why we are organizing this webinar on public perception is that we see that this could potentially be one great barrier for the implementation of large-scale production of biofuels. And we want to see how we can reach the wider audience and enlightening them in this technology. I will move to the agenda for today. We have, let me see. We have 1 hour, so we will, this webinar will last until 11 o'clock. I will, just to give a bit of context into this area, we will start with two short project presentations. So I will present the Refolution project, and my colleague Judith Sandquist will present a Bio4Fuels research center. And then we move on to our experts in this field, which is Nina Westberg. She's the principal scientist at VTT, and she will give a presentation called Sustainability and Responsibility in a Refolution Biofuel Context. After that, we have Remina Alexieva, who is working at the Center for Study of Democracy, that will give a presentation on social acceptance of bioenergy, key lessons and insights from Bulgaria, Italy, Sweden, and Austria. At the end of this webinar, we have a Q&A session, so you are welcome to ask any questions. We will go through all of the presentations first and save all the questions to the end of the webinar. And I also would like to highlight that you use the Q&A button in the bottom of your screen. The message, the chat is only for direct messages. So if you can use the Q&A button, that would be great. So please, as we go along with the webinar, feel free to use this functionality to ask any questions and to any of the speakers. So I think that was the practical things. So I will start with a very short presentation on Refolution, which stands for Refinery Integration, Scale-Up and Certification for Aviation and Marine Biofuels Production. This is a Horizon Europe project, a 4-year project, and we are quite ahead into the second year, so almost halfway into the project. It's coordinated by SINTEF, and the challenge that we are looking into in this project is to unlock the full potential of advanced biofuels production in Europe from European refineries. We have a consortium with expertise from the entire value chain, and the industry is strongly committed to this project. You can see some of all of the partners at the bottom of this slide. So you see we have refinery partners such as Neste and Cepsa and OMV, and we have also BTG for biocrude production. And the impact that we would like to reach with this project is to increase the cost effectiveness of the production of advanced biofuels, while also enhancing sustainability in a circularity approach, and also to prepare a market uptake in the EU. So a bit more about the technology, although this webinar will not be focused on the technology per se, but I think it gives a good context of what we will discuss later on. So we would like to demonstrate advanced biofuel productions, and reaching TRL 7 for aviation fuels and TRL 6 for the marine sectors. So we start from the biomass feedstock, which is forestry residue, through a pyrolysis liquefaction step, and then through different stabilization, refinery processing steps in a refinery, either move towards, through hydrotreatment, move towards a marine biofuel, or through co-processing with a fossil crude to target aviation, but also marine fuels. So we would like to optimize biomass conversion processes and improve product yield and cost effectiveness, and to get clear routes toward biofuels, to have these processes and products certified and standardized. And we would like to optimize process design, increase the digitalization, and also develop a method to track green carbon. So how much biocarbon from the feed do you end up with in your product? We will also develop decision tool and scenarios for optimized deployment, because that is the ultimate goal with this project, is to increase the production and uptake of biofuels in Europe. We would like to also, while we're doing this, so that is sort of the main technology part, but we also would like to look at this into a circular economy, to have full documentation and scenarios for deployment, improved social acceptance, which is the topic of this webinar that Nina will talk a bit more about later in the context of Refolution, and to accelerate the market uptake. I have also this slide showing in the more sort of schematic way for the technologies. I will not spend a lot of time on this, as we would like to spend more time on Nina and Remina's presentations. But as you see, we go from forestry residue through refining in European refineries to end up with biofuels for aviation and marine fuels. And the reason also why we are targeting these sectors is because we see them as more difficult to be able to fully electrify, which we can do, for example, with cars and other transport media. So if you are more interested about the technologies of this project, you can feel free to contact us, or you can visit our webpage. But I think we will move on with the agenda, and I will give the word to my colleague Judith Sandqvist, that will say a few words about the Bio4Fuels Research Centre.
Thank you, Silja. Let me share my screen. Please let me know if you cannot see that.
This looks good. Thank you.
Thank you. The Bio4Fuels is an 8-year-old research center in the Norwegian Centre for Renewable Energy program. It's long-term, quite big center program. And why we do have it? It's because for Norway, besides of electrification of the transport sector, advanced biofuels is playing a major role to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And the Norwegian government has quite ambitious target here. So what we are doing here, we are focusing on technologies relevant for Norway. We have 7 research partners and over 40 industry and other stakeholders. And the goal of the research center is to enable the commercialization of different advanced biofuel technologies in Norway. So this is very local project or research center, to put it this way. We have started in 2017 and finished next year, so we are in almost in a finishing line. We have 3 technical value chains: liquefaction processes, biochemical, and gasification. These are the important value chains identified for the Norwegian context. And we have also a sub-project working on the research side. This is very important, especially in Norway, where we have woody biomass resources, lignocellulosic, but also it has a lot of discussion and a lot of questions raised about land use and climate and environment. Also, we have another SP working on process design and end use, looking into the economics and the product qualities. During this almost 8 years, our researchers have been contributing to IPCC and IPBES with different reports and studies. And also, it's very important for us to disseminate our results. We have a series of webinars that we have been conducting, and still a lot is planned ahead. One of this is this one. And here you can see that it's very in line with what we are aiming to do in dissemination. And I'm really looking forward to hear the presentations of today's webinar. So thank you very much for a very short one. Reach out if you need more information about the center.
Hi, thank you, Judith. And you can also, Judith will stay to the end, and myself also, so we can answer any questions in the Q&A session. Then I think we will move on to Nina Westberg, who is responsible for the sustainability work that we are doing in Refolution. So if you can try to share your screen, Nina.
Yes, thank you, Silje. Okay, now, do you see my presentation?
Yes, looks good.
And hear my voice. So everything works well. Thank you. So, sustainability and responsibility in Refolution biofuel research project context. That's my topic today. We have started to think about this topic in Refolution project, of course, via these sustainable development pillars, so economic sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. But then we very much apply EU Commission-launched Responsible Research and Innovation RRI approach, where the focus is on reflexive, engaging, and inclusive responsibility process in research projects, utilizing insights from experts and other stakeholders. The primary aim of this RRI approach is to create discussion, conversation, even cooperation between researchers and the society stakeholders. So that is what we try to achieve in Refolution also. And we have had a plan in this RRI approach so that in the first year of Refolution, we focused on the inside discussions between the stakeholders in Refolution project, so experts in Refolution project. And this year we have been discussing with the expert outside Refolution. And this is basically the results I'm sharing with you today. Next year, we have a challenge to have discussions and cooperation with citizens and other stakeholders. Then something about this RRI approach. So we have here in the inner circle keys that are important in RRI approach. So ethics, gender equality, governance, open access, public engagement, and science and education. These are the themes that we try to capture in this work. Then we have different kind of competencies. So diverse and inclusive, open and transparent, anticipative and reflective, and then responsive and adaptive in RRI approach. And here we have a little descriptions of these capacities. So anticipate and analyze, we try to capture the future orientation, foresight, horizon scanning, scenarios might be the methods we use. Then reflect and reason, we try to find out motivations, assumptions, and commitments that underpin research projects. So we try to make meaningful science, meaningful research, which is beneficial for the society. The whole idea of RRI is to achieve such a research that is needed in the society. So no useless science. Then engage and include. We try to actively involve relevant societal actors in research, try to create open dialogue between the researchers and society, as I told you earlier already. And then act and respond, responsiveness, acting in the face of societal and environmental challenges. That's what we are doing in Refolution also. Then there are different tools which have been developed around this RRI approach, and this is one that we have used, so Societal Readiness Thinking Tool, which is freely available in the internet. This is in practice a library of questions related to RRI approach. And you can access this thinking tool with this address, thinkingtool.eu. We started this work in Refolution by identifying the biofuel value chain in Refolution context. And here we have first the land use approach, raw materials, then we have fuel production, and then we have biofuel markets and fuel combustion and consumption phase. We also have certification and then R&D design bullets here. And now we go into the RRI framework, where we have integrated this value chain approach, so raw materials, fuel production, biofuel markets, and fuel combustion consumption, and then this societal readiness thinking tool aspect, so impacts, transparency and openness, relevance, and risks. We also have here RRI capacity, so anticipate and analyze, reflect and reason, engage and include, act and respond. And with this framework, we structure the RRI approach in Refolution context. And this means that we have created questions within this framework. For instance, this is quite small, but I just picked something here. So, for instance, raw materials and future orientation, we have a question that which raw materials are likely to be available, inexpensive and sustainable in the future also. And then, for instance, here societal readiness thinking tool-based questions we have in future orientation and impact points, we have a question: how may the results of this project be used in the education of future generations of researchers and engineers? So we have a set of questions in these two tables, and these tables or frameworks are used to structure the discussions between the stakeholders. So we have already used these question sets in Refolution inside discussions, so inside Refolution researchers, and then outside biofuel experts, especially in UBCE this year's conference in Marseille. We used these frameworks in a workshop where we have invited biofuel experts. And now we go into the results of this last mentioned workshop. So first, land use and raw materials. We have this cascade principle, and here the questions or the aspects we need to consider are food or fuel issues or bioplastics or fuel. So these are the things that these experts raised in our discussions based on this RRI framework. And then markets or subsidies in land and raw material use. Then about fuel production. Here, important aspects are local acceptance, potential greenwashing or escaping greenwashing. Then we have market-driven solutions in technology, and then slow transition. Experts think that the transition is going to be slow. I have marked in red here the aspects that especially relate to citizens. So local acceptance and greenwashing, they are consumer oriented aspects especially. Then about markets, biofuel markets, the aspects that have been raised are aviation or marine versus other mobility. So different solutions. We have also other options. So biofuels are competing in this market. Then everybody hopes for simple legislation. And then it has been especially highlighted that accurate information to public should be produced. Then about fuel consumption and combustion. So here, compatible with existing infrastructure. So the production should be fit into the infrastructure, existing infrastructure. Then costs with subsidies, not in prices. That's also a hope. And again, more knowledge to public. And here a list of the most important key takeaways from biofuel expert discussions. So we have here more reliable and open information about biofuels is needed to build trust towards the technology and counter greenwashing. Then secondly, market solutions are seen as the most promising in scaling up sustainable biofuel solutions. Financial incentives need to be in place and strong enough. Then thirdly, this cascading principle is conceived to be crucial in finding sustainable raw materials and moving forwards from the food versus fuel conversation. Then using biofuels is currently more expensive than fossil-based alternatives. Participants felt that solutions to fair distribution of the costs should be found, for instance, through biofuel mandates, rather than voluntary extra fees. And then finally, the future of biofuels is closely linked to the future of other technologies. For aviation and marine transport, no plausible alternatives were recognized, supporting the prediction of scaling up biofuels. For road transport, other technologies might prevail. So, such key takeaways. Then in our Refolution project, in the work package that I'm leading, we are trying to achieve a roadmap towards sustainable business in this new kind of biofuel. And the first task is this RRI approach, but then the second task in this work package is to find out indicators to cover to meter this sustainability. And these are the preliminary ideas of the indicators. So global warming potential, particle emissions, water use, biodiversity, land use, efficiency and impacts, and then energy consumption, and then this biogenic carbon. So these could be the points that we should follow when assessing the sustainability of biofuel. Then our primary goal in this work package is to create a roadmap towards sustainable business. And this is the first highlight from that work, a vision 2050, where we think that more than 40 pyrolysis upgrading plants are operational in Europe, producing in total around 5 million tons per year of sustainable biofuels for mostly marine and aviation applications. So this kind of vision for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. And also a reminder to everyone that you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen to ask any questions, and we can come back to any questions to Nina after we hear the talk from Romina. So thank you for now. Then we move on to the final presentation in the agenda, which is from Romina Alexieva from the Center for the Study of Democracy. So I will give the word to you, Romina.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay, maybe just a verbal yes or no, whether you can see.
Yes, looks good.
Okay.
We hear you well.
Great, it's all good. So happy to be here once again, and I'll be sharing some insights from the ETIB Bioenergy project supporting the platform that were held in Bulgaria, Italy, Sweden, and Austria. So a little bit about me and my organization. I'm an analyst at the Energy and Climate Program at the Center for the Study of Democracy. We're a think tank based in Sofia, Bulgaria, but we do have a European and global reach in terms of energy and climate topics, but also everything democracy related. So we have a wide range of research activities related to foreign influence, disinformation, Russian influence more specifically, which is very, very kind of a prominent line of work in the region, but also key energy and climate topics related to decarbonization and achieving net zero until 2050. So this is just an illustration of some of our work. We do focus on research on low carbon technologies, innovation, but also a big line of our work is related to participatory foresight. So how we can engage different types of stakeholders and citizens in a more collaborative process. So the policies that we propose and advocate for are actually more fair and kind of take into account a lot of citizens and different stakeholders' concerns and needs. So a little bit about our project. We were very happy to take part in the ETIP bioenergy project that supports the platform. As you know, the ETIPs in the different technology fields gather the different types of stakeholders in the industry so they can engage in the development, in our case, focusing on sustainable bioenergy and biofuel technologies. So we do a wide range of events and activities, including stakeholder plenary meetings where we discuss a wide range of issues with stakeholders. But also a lot of our work, especially led by CST, is related to increasing the social acceptance and impact. So getting more citizens involved in the process of proposing some sort of policy recommendations related to bioenergy. So as part of our work, we implemented our well-established methodology that is called Citizen Visions on Science, Technology and Innovation, CIVISTI for short, which has been around for about 15 or 20 years. My colleagues have developed this methodology based on the European Commission's example on citizen panels and engaging citizens, but also on various different methodologies in the academic spheres. So it's kind of a combination of what has worked best in the EU, and we adapted this methodology specifically for the field of bioenergy and for the 4 countries of the consortium, which are Austria, Bulgaria, Italy, and Sweden. So as part of this, we focused on 2 broad perspectives that we identified are most relevant to the citizens from the 4 countries. And these were sustainability in agriculture and forestry, just transition, and social innovation as one. So in short, we recruit citizens based on a set of criteria so that the recruitment is transparent, fair, and the citizens represent a wide range of social ethnic groups. So we achieve diversity. This is being done in each country. Then we gather these people informally, again in each country, to meet with them and give them understandable information about bioenergy. Because we assume, and this was confirmed by the panels, that citizens are not well informed about the sector, the latest developments, and what bioenergy means in their daily life in general. So this was kind of the preliminary stage of meeting the citizens more informally. Then we gather them on a sunny Saturday day in the first citizen panel, where we met again and exchanged information about bioenergy. But the core kind of idea for this first citizen panel was to create visions for the future. And I'm gonna delve in more detail of how the visions were made and what the results are. But the idea was for these visions to be concrete imaginations of what the future will look like. Then we took those visions that were discussed by the participants and ranked by each of the groups we kind of gathered, and we presented them to experts from different fields and different countries that are related to the bioenergy sector, and we discussed with them how to kind of translate what citizens have envisioned in policy recommendations that are concrete and can be implemented both on a EU level and a national level. And then we make a kind of a full feedback loop and give these recommendations to citizens so they can validate them and prioritize them based on their needs and hopes for the future. This is one photo from the panel in Bulgaria. So you can see that the room was a bit crowded and we had quite a good turnout, which is sometimes a problem, I must say. So just like a brief overview from the 4 countries, we managed to gather 108 participants that were quite diverse in terms of background, but most of them did have some sort of higher education. So there were obviously some, I would say, caveats when recruiting participants, that sometimes you cannot reach some people that are not willing to, let's say, accept an invitation from a civil society organization or have some sort of concerns that we might not be able to address at this stage. But there's always room for improvement. We did our best with the recruitment. So as part of the citizen panel process that I explained, we gave them questionnaires before, during, and after to assess what their feelings were about the panels and the process in general, but also their knowledge on bioenergy, EU policymaking as a whole, and more kind of general democratic values. So this was what the prompt we gave to citizens. So they were split up in groups and had to imagine they wake up one day and it's year 2055. They look out the window and with like a coffee or tea in their hand, they had to imagine what the world would look like. So after they did that imagination prompt, they had to, in groups, in discussing, kind of explain how they envision the future world in relation to bioenergy and how in their daily life they see this sector develop. So there's more, so this process just ended for the project. So we are just about to publish more information on our website. Unfortunately, I cannot share anything now in terms of the concrete visions, but at some point, I would be happy to share the exact kind of more detailed visions that citizens came up with. But in short, in terms of teams, there was an interesting overlap for the 4 countries. A lot of them focused on degrowth and kind of not restricting consumption and being more conscious about consumption. There were teams related to circular economy and being more efficient when using resources, both for public, private sectors, but also individually for citizens. And sustainability, cooperation, so better communication and partnerships between public and private sectors, involving more local communities into bioenergy solutions, and creating more synergies between sectors. And most importantly, awareness through education. So I think pretty much every person that took part mentioned that education is really important, especially from a very young age, but also in every stage or age of that person, they need to be well informed, which actually aligns with what Nina mentioned in her presentation. So in terms of results, these questionnaires that we gave participants, we had some interesting insights on the levels of trust. So after our discussions and the materials that we gave them, there was actually an increase of the levels of trust by participants compared to before the first citizen panel started. We also found out that participants reported being more informed about bioenergy after the end of both citizen panels. And interestingly here, the increase was higher for female participants. And lastly, we analyzed their concerns related to bioenergy. So they were given the question when thinking about the future, how concerned you are about the different sectors, so energy scarcity, food scarcity, water scarcity, and biodiversity degradation. And most participants reported being concerned about water scarcity and biodiversity degradation. And this was something that was then integrated in our second discussion and in our follow-ups with participants. So there were some interesting insights that we also took as a project consortium so we can kind of better align our future work. And something I would say it's one of the most interesting things, at least for me, and I would say it's a good takeaway from my presentation, is the country differences. So although we implemented a similar methodology, everything was done the same way, citizens came up with completely different visions, and there was clearly some important differences in terms of what they thought it was most important, which very well reflected kind of the social, political, and economic context of each country. So interestingly, in Sweden, there was a lot of emphasis on integration of technology and forestry management, kind of a more inclusive environment. In Bulgaria, there was a big focus on regulatory improvements, or having actually an adequate legislation to back up all these solutions that were proposed by citizens. And also improving waste management, which is currently a bit non-existent in the country, unfortunately. And Italy, I guess fellow Italians from ETI could maybe have another take on this, but there was a lot of focus on circular economy and fair distribution of resources, which perhaps kind of links with the regional distribution of the country and whether some regions are, let's say, more advantaged in terms of their access to some resources. In Austria, as lastly mentioned, there was a lot of focus on decentralization and the inclusion of local communities, so actually implementing local solutions. And just as a kind of a summarizing slide, I just wanted to mention that throughout our work, we implemented this methodology and it proved to be effective based on the statistics I mentioned, but also in general, people and the experts we engaged were quite happy with their involvement. And now is the stage where, as part of another activity, we have to take on these recommendations that we produced with citizens and experts and actually advocate for them on a EU level and then hopefully on a national level. So this work is still ongoing, so we can kind of do a full loop and contact these citizens and stakeholders we engaged again and say, this is what we sent to the Commission, this is what we advocated for. And we thought that this represents your needs and concerns well. And hopefully there's a positive change from our propositions as a consortium. Another key takeaway, I would say, be conscious about these country differences. So another step would be to take this methodology or combine it with another methodology. So the country-specific needs or even a region-specific needs are well addressed in policy making. And then this is a very good way to touch upon democratic values and improving democracy in the EU as in general. We very often see that democracy is under threat. Things are happening every day in EU countries that are trying to diminish democratic values. So it's a really good way to remind citizens why this is important and why it's actually worth engaging with EU policymaking processes more generally. So that was all from me. I hope you enjoyed our listening about our experience, and I'm happy to share more insights and answer your questions in the discussion.
Thank you, Romina. Very interesting methodology that you've used there. We have 14 minutes for some Q&A. So please continue to ask any questions there. I see that Nina has already started answering some of them. Maybe I should start with one of the first ones here. Do you think higher uptake of biofuels in car combined with credible and transparent education could increase social acceptance among the Norwegian society? Road transport is always referred as the least likely to use those fuels, but due to the frequency of use, cars could be easier to resonate with planes and vessels. It's directed to Norwegian society, but Romina has some insight into answers from Sweden, and Finland is not too far away. So I don't know if any of you would like to try to answer that question.
Yes. So, do you, Romina, start or?
No, go for it, Nina. I just need a minute to.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a so science-based answer, but it seems that policymakers are fixed on electricity in this small car things. So I don't know what's the reason why this has happened. At least in Finland, I think policymakers, decision makers only speak about electricity cars, and then heavy trucks and such could use biofuels.
Yeah,
not individual cars, private cars.
Yeah. That's also sort of follow-up question here in the same question is, are we still facing risk of banking everything on one solution? For example, electrification, and if yes, how the relevant stakeholders can fight for better incentives, financial tools that can speed up introduction of biofuels to the market. But I
same
think
goes to biogas also. It is a minority, at least in Finland.
Do you think that social sort of lack of social acceptance that sort of influence the policymakers contribute to this? That by increasing, our communication with the civil society could help in the.
It might be that the fear of using wood, for instance, and trees for biofuel, people don't want that. So this first-hand material, but then side streams is more acceptable. But somehow the story has started to go this way, that bio-raw material is not good and acceptable. It is increasing nature loss and this kind of things.
Do you want to elaborate on that, Romina, or should we move to the next question?
Yeah, I have a short comment on that. I would say that it might not be a direct answer to a question, as I'm not sure I have it, but there's, in terms of the methodologies Nina and I presented, it's not a one size fits all. So it's always something that I also touched upon is, if you delve deeper, I think institutions and CSOs in, let's say, Norway or Sweden could elaborate on such a methodology to engage citizens when discussing whether a certain policy, let's say related to biofuels, should be implemented and how. Obviously, that is very much related to how informed people are for biofuels, how they're made, what the risks are. But from our perspective, and I can say something that also came up from the citizen panel, was that when you engage in a detailed discussion on a specific policy or solution, citizens very rarely oppose completely. So they're more likely to oppose a solution when they don't have a lot of context for it. So it's a simple yes or no answer. But when you actually give them more information, then they start to realize, oh, it's actually not that simple. So when you engage citizens more mindfully in this process very early on, you can get more kind of a nuanced discussion. And then we found that it's very crucial, and citizens highlighted also that you have to address the risks. So we could say, you know, we're not gonna put all of our eggs in one basket, but we're gonna try with this, let's say, biofuels policy because we think it's relevant. But here are the risks that we acknowledge that they're there. And this is something that should be said publicly by an institutional body or someone that people can trust, and say, well, this is what we're gonna do to address these risks, but we know they're there. So I would say, you know, be mindful of the specifics for the country, and then address the challenges and the unknowns. These are kind of my two answers.
Thank you. I think we move on to another question. Nina touched a bit on it, but beyond food versus fuel, there is an issue of fuel versus biocommodities. Is it useful to think in, and I think there's a type here, of transition pathways where the use of bio feedstocks evolve power time? An important barrier is the availability of suitable forms of finance for the biofuel plus biocommodity supply chain upstream of the biorefineries. Would you like to answer that, Nina?
Yes, a simple solution for this is to use side streams, so not virgin material and not material for food uses. So that would be acceptable. But yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, and that goes also to fuel versus biocommodities in general, if we're talking about forestry. So not virgin material, but more residues from sawmills, etc.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Let me... Yeah, so I think that this is a question to also the projects. Are the major petrol companies involved in your work? And do you think they will use it? At which conditions agricultural and forest residues can still be used for fuels or biochemistry? The debate about forest is very hard. I don't know, Judith, if you have some, you have been working in this Bio4Fuels Centre, there is industry involved there. Could you don't work in the industry yourself per se, but in your conversations with them, do you think you can comment on this?
Sorry, I was busy typing an answer. Which question is it?
is from Jean-Yves Dubre. Are the major petrol companies involved in your work? Do you think they will use it? And then there's a follow-up: at which conditions agricultural and forest residues can still be used for fuels or biochemistry?
Yes, I think it's a very interesting and relevant feedstock all around Europe. The conditions, the most important conditions, is to get enough for your design facilities. So you design a facility or a plant, and then you need to secure the feedstock. This is number one. And then you need to make sure that this feedstock is available. We have seen that there have been problems when it wasn't, and then they had trouble. But agricultural residues is also is seen as an important one. However, the problem with that is the energy density is quite low, so the transport needs to be very local. So it will be on the local basis. You will see on different, if you want to commercialize a technology and build a plant, you need to make sure what is available locally. And there are some tools to make sure that that you have that. So it will be a very local question. In Norway, using forest residues has been also a question, because right now much of this feedstock is transported to Sweden, and the transport costs again are quite high. So the stakeholders looking into how they can utilize for other purposes, for example, for biofuel production. Is this good enough answer for your question?
Thank you. Let's move to another one. I think it has been partly answered already, but there was some importance given to synergies between agriculture, environment, and energy, and the multifunctionality in agricultural systems. Should this have an effect on which feedstocks should be considered suitable, and should we look at the systems rather than simply the feedstock?
I think that would be wise to look at systems. And also what Judith mentioned, this locality, local solutions. It could also be a matter of this systematic solutions or systemic, systemic solutions. So what is wise locally?
Yeah. And also Romina showed that in her presentation that the local questions are quite different, local situations, and also on what the civil society, what is important to them. I see that we only have 2 more minutes. There came in one just now. Good morning from Ireland. We have a government-led bias here with respect to electricity in small cars, and I think we could also benefit from an education on the benefits of gaseous and liquid biofuels. So maybe this was more of a comment than a question. PS, in Ireland, more than 60% of the wheat harvest went to feed our horses. So energy. Any comment to elaborate on that? I don't think this was more a question, but
I think here maybe what the person might be referring to is you can sense that EU policy is heading towards one direction, and then it's a bit confusing for lay people or even experts to see, well, now the EU has to actually turn back and propose another solution. So it was electric cars, but we know that this has been difficult. So I guess here it's also very crucial to demand more communication from institutions and bodies, so that they can say, well, this is EU policy, this is what it is telling us, but then we're gonna this is our decision based on this EU policy. So kind of having an active stance as a country on what kind of solutions you're going to implement in that country, not just relying on one solution that anyone is telling you that is the best. I'm not sure if I quite managed to explain what I mean.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I see there are more questions and that we've run out of time. Obviously, this was some important questions and a topic that people are really, really interested in. Nina mentioned also in her presentation that from, at least for the Refolution project, this is something that we will work more into towards the next year. So where we are planning to sort of target more the civil society and like expand on not just communicating with experts. So we will keep everyone in the loop on the work that is going on there. So if you follow us online, if you follow the projects and so on LinkedIn and also on our webpage, we will keep you updated if there are any other webinars or conferences where this will be a topic. So thank you all for attending, and for the presentations that can be distributed, we can make sure that that is you can reach that on our webpage, or we can send a link via LinkedIn. So thank you very much, and I wish you a nice rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.